You've found the Stealth Podcast. Where are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and comment to support us. Thanks. Let's begin. I never thought I'd find myself running for my life in the backwoods of Louisiana. My name is Rhett Donovan, 34 years old, originally from Portland, where I worked as a freelance photographer before deciding to embrace the nomadic lifestyle. 3 months into my van life journey, I documented breathtaking landscapes across the Pacific Northwest and worked my way east, posting my adventures to a modest but growing online following. My converted 2015 Sprinter van, affectionately named Wanderlust, had become more home to me than any apartment ever was. I'd outfitted it with everything I needed: a comfortable sleeping area, compact kitchen setup, and enough camera equipment to capture whatever caught my eye. When I pulled into Duloc, Louisiana, the humidity hit me like a wet blanket. The small fishing community south of Houma wasn't on my original itinerary, but a fellow vanlifer had posted about the authentic Cajun experience and incredible bayou photography opportunities. After driving 16 hours straight from Tennessee, my eyes were heavy, and I desperately needed rest. The main street was quiet as I passed through, moss-draped cypress trees creating eerie silhouettes in my headlights. I spotted a gravel lot near the water that seemed secluded enough for overnight parking. A perfect stealth camping spot away from prying eyes or local authorities who might hassle me about sleeping in my vehicle. The air smelled of brackish water and something else I couldn't quite place, something rotten and primal that made the hair on my arms stand up. Still, I was too exhausted to look for another spot. I parked facing the water, positioning myself so I could wake up to the sunrise over the bayou. Through my windshield, I could see the moon's reflection rippling on the dark water, occasionally disrupted by something breaking the surface. Probably fish, I thought, or maybe one of the alligators these waters were known for. I took a few night shots before setting up for sleep, the camera's flash momentarily illuminating the dense vegetation surrounding the water's edge. Was that movement I saw in the trees just my imagination playing tricks after too many hours on the road? After a quick dinner of microwave ramen, I pulled down my blackout curtains and locked all the doors, a habit I developed even in seemingly safe locations. The sounds of the bayou created a strange symphony: frogs croaking, insects buzzing, and occasional splashes from the water. Something about this place felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. The locals I'd briefly interacted with at the gas station had been friendly enough, if not a bit reserved, when I mentioned I was looking for a place to park overnight. "Best stick to the campgrounds," one older man had warned, not meeting my eyes. "Folks round here don't take kindly to strangers wandering about after dark." I'd brushed off his concern. I'd stealth camped in plenty of places without issue. As I scrolled through my photos from the day, I noticed something peculiar in one of the shots I'd taken at dusk. In the background, partially obscured by cypress trees, stood what appeared to be a figure watching me. I zoomed in, but the image was too grainy to make out details. Probably just a local fisherman, I reasoned, but something about the way it stood, unnaturally still, just beyond the reach of clear visibility, sent a shiver down my spine. I put away my camera and tried to settle into sleep, the confined space of my van suddenly feeling less like freedom and more like a trap. The metal walls that usually made me feel secure now seemed thin and vulnerable against whatever might lurk in the darkness outside. Just as I was drifting off, a sharp tap on my window jolted me fully awake. My heart hammered against my ribs as I froze, straining to hear over the blood rushing in my ears. Tap, tap, tap. There it was again, deliberate and insistent. I reached for my phone, ready to call 911, but found no service bars. Of course, I was in the middle of nowhere. The tapping continued, more urgent now. Against my better judgment, I slowly reached for the edge of the blackout curtain. My fingers trembled as I pulled it back just enough to peek outside. What I saw made my blood run cold. A pale hand pressed flat against my window, long fingers splayed like a starfish, nails blackened with what looked like mud or blood. I jerked back, letting the curtain fall. The tapping stopped. For several heartbeats, all I could hear was the sound of my own ragged breathing and the pounding of my pulse in my ears. Then came a voice, soft and drawling with that distinctive Louisiana cadence. "We know you're in there, photographer. Just need a word with you about them pictures you've been talking." How did they know I was a photographer? I hadn't spoken to anyone about my profession since arriving in town. As quietly as possible, I crawled to the driver's seat, ready to start the engine and flee. But when I chanced another glance out the windshield, what I saw made me freeze. 3 more figures had materialized from the darkness, blocking my exit route, their faces obscured by what looked like crude burlap masks with jagged eye holes. In their hands gleamed the unmistakable shape of hunting knives. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as sweat beaded on my forehead despite the cool air blowing from the vents. The engine had roared to life on the first try, small mercies, but the figures hadn't scattered as I'd hoped. Instead, they formed a semicircle in front of my van, their masked faces tilted curiously like predators studying prey. My headlights illuminated them fully now, for individuals of varying heights wearing filthy overalls and those disturbing handmade masks. The tallest one stepped forward, raising a hand in what could have been a gesture to stop or a perverted greeting. I had a split-second decision to make: try to drive through them and risk hitting someone, or find another way out of this nightmare. "Y'all come out nice and easy now," called the same voice from before, belonging to a shorter figure who stepped into the light. "We just want to have a little conversation about respect and privacy in these parts." Something about the way he said conversation made my skin crawl. I shifted the van into reverse, checking the rearview mirror, and felt my heart sink. 2 more figures had appeared behind me, effectively boxing me in. One was dragging something heavy that left a dark trail in the gravel. With mounting horror, I realized it was another person, limp and unmoving. The implications hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't some local harassment or territorial dispute. These people had already hurt someone tonight. My mind raced through options as I remained locked in my van. I could try to wait them out, but they seemed patient and determined. I could attempt to call for help, but with no cell service, that was futile. The police station I'd passed was at least 15 minutes away by car. I cursed myself for choosing such an isolated spot. The locals had tried to warn me, hadn't they? Folks round here don't take kindly to strangers. What did they know that I didn't? What was happening in this town that required such violent protection of secrets? My thoughts were interrupted by something heavy striking my passenger window, causing a spider web of cracks to spread across the glass. "Last chance before we do this the hard way," the voice called out, now tinged with impatience. My eyes darted around the van's interior, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. I had a flashlight, a multi-tool, and my camera equipment. Not much against hunting knives and whatever else these people might be carrying. The cracked window wouldn't hold for long against another blow. I noticed they were all positioned either directly in front of my van or behind it, but the passenger side facing the water was momentarily clear. If I could somehow exit through that door and make it to the water, but then what? I wasn't familiar with the bayou. For all I knew, it could be teeming with alligators or worse. Another blow to my window made the decision for me. The glass wouldn't survive a third hit. I grabbed my phone, flashlight, and multi-tool, stuffing them into my pockets. As the masked figures moved in for another strike, I gunned the engine and cranked the wheel hard, accelerating in a sharp arc that sent my van careening toward the small gap between 2 of the figures and the dense tree line. They leapt back, clearly surprised by my sudden movement. For a moment, I thought I might make it. The path ahead was clear, and the main road was just beyond those trees. Then something large crashed into my driver's side with enough force to send the van skidding sideways. Through my side mirror, I caught a glimpse of what had hit me. A rusted pickup truck had T-boned my van, crumpling the metal and shoving me away from my escape route. The impact left me dazed, ears ringing as I struggled to regain my bearings. Blood trickled from where my head had struck the window. My van was still running, but the front wheels were now precariously close to the bayou's edge. One of the masked figures approached my window, tapping it almost gently with the tip of a knife. That there was foolish, the voice said, sounding genuinely disappointed. "We could have done this civilized-like. Now we gotta add you to tonight's cleanup. Shame, really, but can't have you spreading stories about what you seen." What had I seen? I frantically reviewed my photos from earlier, trying to understand what could have provoked this violent response. Then it hit me, the figure I'd captured in the background of my dusk photos. Had I accidentally documented something I wasn't supposed to? The masked person raised something above their head, a heavy maul or sledgehammer, ready to shatter my window completely. In that moment of clarity and terror, I made my decision. I slammed the accelerator to the floor, sending my beloved wanderlust lurching forward directly into the murky waters of the bayou, with me still inside. The van hit the water with a tremendous splash, immediately beginning to sink as water rushed in through the damaged side. Panic seized my chest as the cold bayou flooded the footwell, rising quickly around my legs. The masked figures stood at the water's edge, watching impassively as my vehicle began its descent. I had seconds to escape before the van sank completely. I struggled with my seatbelt, fingers slippery with blood and sweat, finally managing to free myself as water reached my waist. The current was already pulling at the van, dragging it deeper into the bayou. I took a deep breath and forced my door open against the pressure of the water. It was now or never. The rush of water nearly swept me away as I pushed out into the black depths, kicking hard to distance myself from the sinking vehicle. Every instinct screamed at me to surface for air, but I knew the moment I did, I'd be visible to my pursuers. Instead, I swam underwater, lungs burning, in what I hoped was a direction away from both the shore where they stood and my rapidly disappearing van. When I could hold my breath no longer, I allowed just my face to break the surface behind the cover of a cypress knee, gasping as quietly as possible. Through the low-hanging moss, I could see flashlight beams scanning the water where my van had gone under. "Find him," shouted the voice I recognized. "Nobody gets away. You know what happens if word gets out." I treaded water silently, trying to orient myself in the darkness. The shore where my attacker stood was now about 30 yards away. Beyond them, I could see the gravel lot and the road that led back to civilization. In the opposite direction, deeper into the bayou, loomed the dark shapes of cypress trees and what appeared to be an old, half-submerged wooden structure, perhaps an abandoned fishing cabin or boathouse, that might offer temporary shelter, a place to hide until these people gave up their search. But something moved in the water nearby, a powerful undulation that sent ripples across the surface. I wasn't alone in these waters, and not all threats wore masks. "Check the water for bubbles. He can't have gotten far," ordered what seemed to be their leader. Two of the masked figures were now wading into the shallows, knife blades catching the moonlight as they swept them back and forth beneath the surface. One of them was coming in my direction. I took another careful breath and submerged again, swimming as quietly as possible toward the partially sunken structure I'd spotted. My lungs screamed for oxygen by the time I reached it, fingers grasping at the slimy wood as I pulled myself up just enough to breathe. The rotting planks creaked ominously beneath my weight. What I'd thought was a boathouse was actually a dilapidated pier extending from what must have once been a secondary access point to the water. Half collapsed and long forgotten, it offered minimal shelter but enough shadow to conceal me momentarily. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness beneath the structure, something pale caught my attention, something that made my blood freeze despite the warm Louisiana night. Tied to one of the pier's support posts, partly submerged in the murky water, was a body. Not fresh, like the one I'd seen being dragged earlier, but bloated and decomposing, skin sloughing off in the gentle current. Around the corpse's neck hung a camera similar to mine. I bit back a scream, nearly losing my grip on the slick wood. This wasn't random violence or some territorial backwoods folk protecting their privacy. This was something systematic, something that had happened before. How many photographers or tourists had disappeared in these waters, their disappearances attributed to alligator attacks or accidental drownings. I needed to get to the authorities, but first I had to survive the night. A splash nearby sent me pressing flat against the underside of the pier. Through gaps in the planks, I could see one of the masked figures moving along the shore, methodically working their way in my direction. The beam of their flashlight swept across the water, coming dangerously close to my hiding spot. "I think I see something over by the old Thibodeau Pier," the figure called out. Footsteps pounded along the shore as others converged on my location. I was trapped. If I tried to swim away, I'd be spotted instantly, but if I remained here, they'd find me within minutes. The decision was made for me when something large brushed against my legs underwater. Instinctively, I jerked away, causing the rotten planks above me to groan. The flashlight beam immediately fixed on my position. "There he is," came the shout, followed by the distinctive sound of a shotgun being racked. I had no choice. I pushed away from the pier and dove deep, swimming with desperate strokes parallel to the shore, hoping to find another place to come up for air before my lungs gave out. The water exploded around me as shotgun pellets tore through the surface. I changed direction underwater, disoriented and dizzy from lack of oxygen. My hand suddenly struck something solid, another submerged object. As I grasped it to push off, my fingers recognized the unmistakable texture of a human face. I recoiled in horror, accidentally surfacing with a gasping breath that gave away my position. The flashlights immediately swung in my direction, illuminating not just me, but what I'd discovered: a submerged car, its windows open, filled with multiple bodies in various states of decay. Their faces pressed against the glass, mouths open in eternal screams, eyes vacant, yet somehow accusing. I'd found the graveyard where the people of Duloc disposed of their secrets. He's seen the drop-off. Don't let him get away now. The voice echoed across the water as I dove again, adrenaline temporarily overriding the burning in my lungs and the leaden exhaustion in my limbs. I swam deeper, using the submerged car and its ghastly contents as cover from the hail of shotgun pellets raining down from above. The murky water offered some protection, but I couldn't stay under forever. My head pounded with the need for oxygen, spots dancing in my vision as I pushed forward, feeling my way along what I now realized was an underwater graveyard. My hand brushed against another vehicle, then another. There had to be at least a dozen submerged cars, vans, and trucks, creating a macabre artificial reef of missing travelers. When I finally surfaced, gasping desperately for air, I'd managed to put some distance between myself and my pursuers. I found myself in a small inlet partially screened by hanging moss and fallen cypress branches. The sounds of shouting were more distant now, but flashlight beams still swept methodically across the water. They weren't giving up. Why would they? I'd seen too much, the evidence of what must have been decades of murders. My mind raced to make sense of it all. What was this town protecting? Was it some kind of twisted tourist trap, luring in unsuspecting travelers to rob and murder them? Or something even more sinister? The bloated face of the photographer flashed in my mind, his camera still hanging around his neck like some grotesque trophy. I needed to move, but exhaustion was setting in, my clothes weighing me down and my injured head throbbing mercilessly. The shore nearest to me appeared to be uninhabited swampland. No lights, no structures visible through the trees. If I could make it there and work my way around to the road, I might have a chance to flag down a passing car or find my way back to town. But town meant people, and after what I'd seen, I couldn't be sure who to trust. For all I knew, the entire community was complicit in these killings. The sheriff I'd nodded to earlier that day could be among the masked figures hunting me now. My only hope was to reach the highway and flag down an out-of-town driver. As I began to swim cautiously toward the shoreline, something large moved beneath me, creating a powerful current that nearly pulled me under. I froze, remembering the constant danger lurking in these waters. Alligators. In my panic to escape the masked killers, I'd forgotten about the bayou's natural predators. Now, caught between human hunters and ancient reptilian ones, my situation felt increasingly hopeless. A low, rumbling hiss from nearby confirmed my fears. I wasn't imagining things. The moonlight reflected off two raised bumps in the water about 15 feet away. Eyes, watching me with prehistoric patience. The alligator was massive, at least 12 feet long from what little I could see of its partially submerged form. I remained perfectly still, barely breathing, caught in a deadly standoff. The alligator seemed content to wait, perhaps confused by my unfamiliar scent or movements. Behind me, the voices of the masked figures grew closer again. They doubled back, working their way along the shore. Check them reeds. He couldn't have gotten far in this water without something getting him. The irony wasn't lost on me. For a moment, I considered letting the alligator take me rather than face whatever these people had planned. At least it would be quicker, more natural somehow. But some stubborn part of me refused to give up. I had to document what I'd found, had to make sure these killers faced justice for what they'd done. The standoff was broken by the sound of a boat engine roaring to life. My pursuers had called in reinforcements, a flat-bottomed swamp boat, judging by the sound. Its spotlight swept across the water as it navigated between cypress trunks. The sudden noise and movement agitated the alligator, which submerged completely, disappearing from view but not from my awareness. I had seconds to decide: stay hidden and risk becoming reptile food, or make a desperate swim for shore and risk being spotted. The boat was approaching rapidly from my left, which meant the shore to my right might offer my only chance. Taking the deepest breath I could, I slipped underwater again and swam with powerful, silent strokes toward what I hoped was safety. I emerged into a tangle of mangrove roots and cypress knees, clawing my way through mud and vegetation onto somewhat solid ground. My clothes were torn, my body covered in scratches and bites from insects and whatever else lurked in the swampy shallows. But I was alive and, for the moment, hidden from both the boat's spotlight and the alligators. I lay gasping in the mud, listening to the boat circle nearby. "Nothing over here, Marshal," called a voice I hadn't heard before. Marshal? An actual law enforcement officer was working with these killers? My suspicion about the entire town being involved seemed increasingly likely. I needed to get much farther away before attempting to seek help. Forcing my exhausted body to move, I crawled deeper into the undergrowth, using the dense vegetation for cover as I tried to orient myself. The dense forest of the bayou was disorienting, especially in the darkness. Every sound, the call of night birds, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush, the constant chorus of insects, made me freeze in terror. I'd lost my phone during the swim, but I still had my multi-tool, which included a small compass. If I could figure out which direction led to the highway, I might have a chance. The boat continued to patrol the water behind me, its spotlight occasionally penetrating the trees where I crouched. I could hear them discussing their search pattern, methodically covering the area where they thought I might have come ashore. "Remember, we need him alive if possible," said a new voice, authoritative and cold. "He needs to tell us if he uploaded those pictures anywhere before we finish this." Dawn was breaking by the time I reached what appeared to be a service road cutting through the swamp. My clothes had dried stiff with mud and bayou water, my feet blistered and bleeding from stumbling barefoot through the underbrush. But the rising sun brought a surge of hope. I'd survived the night, evaded both human and animal predators, and now had a clear path that had to lead somewhere. My elation was short-lived, however, as the distant sound of engines reached my ears. They were still looking for me, and daylight would make me much easier to spot. I needed to move quickly but cautiously. The road seemed to run roughly east-west, and I chose east, reasoning it would eventually connect to the highway I'd used to enter Duloc. The Louisiana morning brought suffocating humidity and swarms of mosquitoes that feasted on my exposed skin. Every step was agony on my raw feet, but the alternative, being caught by the people who had turned that section of bayou into a mass grave, kept me moving forward. I couldn't stop thinking about those bodies underwater, the photographer with his camera still around his neck, and whatever terrible secret this town was killing to protect. As I shambled along, I pieced together the fragments I knew. Photographers specifically targeted, locals who warned strangers away, a marshal involved in the killings. Perhaps they were hiding something they didn't want documented, illegal operations, or some kind of cult activity. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 40 minutes of walking, I caught sight of something that made my heart soar. A highway sign visible through the trees where the service road curved to join a larger thoroughfare. Civilization, or at least the chance to flag down a passing motorist who wasn't from Duloc. I broke into a stumbling run despite the pain, fixated on that sign like it was salvation itself. I was so focused on reaching the highway that I failed to register the sound of an approaching vehicle until it was almost upon me. I dove into the roadside vegetation just as a familiar rusted pickup truck rumbled past, moving slowly as its occupants scanned the road. The same truck that had rammed my van. They were patrolling the escape routes. I remained hidden, watching through the leaves as the truck stopped about 50 yards ahead where the service road met the highway. Two men emerged, one wearing a police uniform, the other in dirty overalls. The officer was scanning the tree line with binoculars while his companion spoke into a radio. They were coordinating, setting up a perimeter. I was so close to escape, yet still trapped. As I weighed my options, movement to my right caught my attention. Another figure was approaching through the woods parallel to the road, walking with the practiced silence of a hunter. He carried a rifle and wore camouflage clothing rather than a mask. This was an organized manhunt now, conducted in broad daylight with the full participation of local law enforcement. My only chance was to double back and try to find another way out, perhaps circle around to approach the highway from a different direction. But as I carefully began to retreat deeper into the cover of vegetation, my foot came down on a dry branch. The snap seemed deafening in the morning stillness. The hunter's head whipped around, eyes locking onto my position with unnerving accuracy. "Over here," he shouted, raising his rifle. I didn't wait to see more. I turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush with no regard for stealth now. The sound of pursuit was immediate, multiple voices calling to each other as they converged on my position. I plunged deeper into the swamp, away from the road and my hopes of easy escape. My mind raced frantically for a plan. If I could find water again, a channel or stream deep enough to swim, I might be able to throw them off my trail. The ground beneath my feet grew increasingly soggy, promising the wetlands weren't far ahead. Behind me, the shouts grew more distant as my pursuers were forced to slow down in the difficult terrain. For a moment, I dared to hope I might actually outpace them. Then the ground simply disappeared beneath me. One step I was running, the next I was falling, tumbling down a steep, muddy embankment I hadn't seen in time. I crashed through branches and vines before landing hard in shallow, stagnant water. The fall knocked the wind from my lungs and sent pain shooting through my left ankle. Sprained or broken, it didn't matter. I couldn't put weight on it. I dragged myself toward a fallen tree for cover, fighting waves of panic and nausea. Above me, voices approached the embankment I'd fallen from. "He went down here somewhere. Spread out and find him." I pressed myself into the mud beneath the log, making myself as small as possible. Through a gap, I could see 3 men making their way carefully down the slope, weapons ready. One was the uniformed officer I'd seen earlier. "Remember," he called to the others, "we need to know if he sent those pictures anywhere. Marshall wants him alive for questioning." I held my breath as they reached the bottom and began methodically searching the area. My hiding place wouldn't conceal me for long. There were too many of them covering too little ground. As if the situation wasn't dire enough, I felt something move against my leg in the murky water. The bayou's predators were ever present, drawn perhaps by the blood from my numerous cuts and scrapes. One of the searchers was moving directly toward my log, close enough that I could see the Duloc Sheriff's Department patch on his uniform. In that moment, I realized with crushing certainty that I wasn't going to escape, not with a useless ankle and surrounded on all sides. The decision I made next was born of desperation. If I couldn't escape, I could at least try to expose what I'd discovered. My multi-tool included a small blade, not much of a weapon, but perhaps enough for what I needed. With trembling fingers, I used it to carve a hurried message into the soft wood of the log. Bodies in bayou at Duloc gravel lot. Photographer killings. Police involved. It wasn't much, but if another hiker or hunter ever found it. I had just pressed the blade into the wood one final time when a boot came down beside my head. Well, drawled the voice I recognized from the previous night. "Looks like our photographer friend here has been doing some more documenting." Rough hands dragged me from my hiding place, bringing me face to face with the unmasked men of Duloc who had hunted me through the night. The marshal, a gray-haired man with cold eyes and a star pinned to his chest, knelt beside me, examining the crude message I'd carved. "You see, this right here is exactly why we have our little system," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather rather than mass murder. "Folks come through our town, think they can just take pictures of whatever they please, never considering they might capture something they shouldn't." He nodded to one of his men, who produced my camera, somehow salvaged from my sunken van. Like this fascinating series of photos showing our monthly drop-off from the pharmaceutical company that doesn't officially exist. He showed me the screen, scrolling through images I'd taken at dusk. The figure I'd captured wasn't a person at all, but men unloading unmarked crates from a van into an unmarked boat. Government pays us good money to make sure nobody documents their little operation here. Been that way since the 70s. They bound my hands and dragged me back toward the road, my ankle screaming in pain with every step. I thought of all the others who had come before me. The photographer whose body I'd found underwater, the countless victims in submerged vehicles. Had they all made the same mistake I had? Simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time with a camera? The marshal walked beside me, still talking in that eerily calm voice. Don't take it personal, son. It's just business. Town needs the money. Government needs its secrets kept. Circle of life around here. As we reached the clearing where several vehicles waited, I caught sight of something that made my blood run cold. A news van parked on the shoulder of the highway, its occupants speaking with local deputies. Right on time, the marshal said, nodding toward the news crew. Anonymous tip about a photographer who drove into the bayou last night. Tragic accident. Body may never be recovered. What with the alligators and all. He turned to me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You'll get your story after all, just not the way you imagined. As they shoved me into the back of a police cruiser, I watched the news crew setting up for what they thought was a story about a tragic accident, completely unaware that they were being fed a cover story by the very people responsible for dozens of similar accidents over the years. The cruiser pulled away, heading not toward the police station, but back toward the bayou. My last glimpse of the outside world was that news van growing smaller in the distance. Potential rescuers who would never know how close they'd come to uncovering the truth about Duloc. My name is Vance Mulligan, 29 years old, born and raised in Seattle where I worked as a paralegal before my life took an unexpected turn. 6 months ago, I quit my job, sold most of my possessions, and converted a 2018 Ford Transit into what I now call home. The decision came after my fiancée left me for my best friend, a double betrayal that made starting fresh seem like the only logical option. The Vanlife community online made the transition look so appealing. Freedom, adventure, minimal expenses, and constant change of scenery. What they didn't advertise was how vulnerable you could feel when parked alone in unfamiliar territory, especially when that territory is the backroads of northern Louisiana during what locals call the hungry season. I'd been making my way east from Texas, documenting my journey on a small but growing social media account where I shared restoration tips and scenic locations for other van dwellers. My ultimate destination was Florida, but I decided to explore Louisiana's less touristy areas after connecting with a fellow vanlifer who raved about the authentic experiences and undiscovered gems in the state's rural parishes. That's how I ended up in Mariah, Louisiana. Population 1,203 according to the faded welcome sign, a small logging town surrounded by dense pine forests and murky swamps. The place had a certain eerie charm with its weathered buildings and thick morning fog that seemed to swallow the outskirts of town like a hungry beast. After spending the day exploring the small downtown area and stocking up on supplies, I found myself searching for a quiet spot to park for the night. Most vanlifers have apps showing safe overnight parking options, but Mariah was a blank spot on the digital map. No Walmart, no designated rest areas, not even reviews from previous travelers. Following a dirt road that wound into the pine forest west of town, I discovered what seemed like the perfect stealth camping spot. A small clearing partially hidden from the road, surrounded by tall pines that would shield my van from casual observers. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees in mesmerizing patterns that I couldn't resist capturing on my camera before settling in for the night. The temperature dropped significantly after sunset, a welcome relief from the oppressive humidity of the day. I prepared a simple dinner of canned soup heated on my portable stove, sipping a beer as I scrolled through the photos I'd taken around town. Something about the images unsettled me. Not anything specific I could point to, but a feeling that crept up my spine as I studied the faces of locals I'd captured in the background of my shots. They all seemed to be watching me, their expressions guarded and wary despite the friendly words we'd exchanged. One photo in particular caught my attention. An elderly man standing in front of the general store, his gaze fixed directly on my camera with an intensity that felt accusatory, almost threatening. Just as I was about to close my laptop, a notification pinged, a comment on my most recent post sharing my location. Get out of Mariah now. Not safe. The username was unfamiliar, and when I clicked to view the profile, I found it had already been deleted. My finger hovered over the delete button, probably just a troll or someone playing a prank, but something stopped me. The specificity of naming Mariah gave me pause. How would a random troll know exactly where I was? I quickly scrolled through comments on my previous posts, finding nothing similar from this user or anyone else. Just as I was convincing myself it was nothing to worry about, a sharp crack outside made me freeze. the unmistakable sound of a branch breaking under someone's weight. I killed the lights in my van immediately, my heart pounding as I peered through a small gap in my blackout curtains. The forest outside was pitch black, the moon obscured by gathering storm clouds that had rolled in while I was distracted. I strained my eyes trying to detect movement among the trees, but the darkness was impenetrable. Then a flash of lightning illuminated the clearing for a split second, and I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. Multiple figures standing at the tree line, motionless, watching my van. I couldn't make out their faces or even how many there were, but their stillness was unnatural, predatory. The thunder that followed seemed to shake my entire van, and when the next lightning flash came seconds later, the figures had moved closer. I scrambled to the driver's seat, hands trembling as I fumbled with my keys. Whatever was happening, I wasn't sticking around to find out. Just as I slid the key into the ignition, my phone lit up with an incoming call, a local area code, but not a number I recognized. Against my better judgment, I answered, raising the phone to my ear with a shaking hand. For several seconds, all I heard was breathing. Then a child's voice came through so clearly it was as if they were sitting beside me. "Mister, you shouldn't have taken pictures of the hungry ones. Now they're coming for you too." The line went dead just as another lightning flash revealed the figures had closed half the distance to my van. Their movements were jerky, almost mechanical, and I could now see they were wearing what appeared to be crude masks made from tree bark and animal bones. The engine roared to life on the third try, the starter protesting against the damp night air. I threw the van into reverse, tires spinning in the soft earth before finally finding purchase. Through my windshield, I could see the figures moving with surprising speed, converging on my vehicle from multiple directions. Their bodies seemed wrong somehow, too thin, limbs too long, and jointed in unnatural places. I slammed on the gas, the back of my van fishtailing as I executed a frantic three-point turn to face the dirt road that would lead back to town. Rain had started to fall in heavy sheets, reducing visibility to almost nothing between lightning flashes. My headlights carved twin tunnels through the darkness, illuminating the road just enough for me to avoid driving into the ditch. My mind raced with questions as I navigated the treacherous road. Who were those people? What did the child on the phone mean by the hungry ones? And why would taking photographs trigger such a response? I'd captured nothing controversial or private, just buildings, landscapes, and a few candid shots of locals going about their business. The dirt road seemed longer on the return journey, the trees pressing closer on either side, branches scraping against my van like skeletal fingers trying to hold me back. A particularly bright flash of lightning revealed something in my rearview mirror that nearly caused me to drive off the road. One of the figures was clinging to the back of my van, impossibly fast and strong to have caught up with a moving vehicle. I accelerated harder, taking curves at dangerous speeds, hoping to dislodge my unwanted passenger. The rain made the road treacherous, my tires struggling to maintain traction on what was quickly becoming a river of mud. Another flash showed the figure still there, now crawling across the roof toward the driver's side. The metallic sound of something sharp scraping across the van's exterior sent shivers down my spine. I swerved violently, nearly hitting a tree, but the maneuver worked. An inhuman shriek pierced the air as the figure was thrown clear. The relief was short-lived, however, as I rounded the next bend and found the road blocked by a massive fallen pine, its enormous trunk creating an impassable barrier between me and the town. Cursing under my breath, I scanned my surroundings for alternatives. To my right, a narrower track branched off from the main dirt road, not ideal for a vehicle my size, but potentially passable. With no time to deliberate, I cranked the wheel and headed down this new path, praying it would eventually connect back to civilization. The track grew increasingly narrow, low-hanging branches battering my van as I pushed forward. My GPS showed no road here, just an unmarked area of forest. I was essentially driving blind, guided only by the need to put distance between myself and whatever was pursuing me. The rain intensified, turning the track into a slippery mess that threatened to trap my wheels with each passing minute. After nearly 15 minutes of slow, treacherous progress, the trees suddenly gave way to a clearing. Through the curtain of rain, I could make out several dilapidated structures, an abandoned logging camp perhaps, or an old homestead long since reclaimed by the forest. The largest building appeared to be a barn or warehouse, its door hanging partially open. I needed shelter to regroup, check my map, and figure out an alternative route back to civilization. Despite every horror movie warning against entering creepy buildings in the woods, I had few options with the storm raging and unknown pursuers potentially still on my trail. I parked as close to the entrance as possible and, after a moment's hesitation, grabbed my flashlight, pocket knife, and phone before making a dash for the shelter of the decrepit structure. The interior of the building was surprisingly vast, my flashlight beam barely penetrating the darkness to reveal the far wall. The air inside was heavy with the scent of damp wood, mildew, and something else, a sweetish, metallic odor that reminded me unpleasantly of blood. As my eyes adjusted, I began to make out details: massive support beams, remnants of machinery, and what appeared to be large metal hooks hanging from tracks in the ceiling. Not a barn then, but some kind of processing facility. Old logging equipment perhaps, or meat processing given the hooks. I moved deeper into the space, seeking a corner where I could sit with my back protected while I consulted my offline maps. The beam of my flashlight swept across the floor, revealing disturbing dark stains that looked unsettlingly recent, still glistening in the light. My phone showed no service, not surprising given the remote location and the storm. The offline maps confirmed my suspicion. This facility wasn't marked, and the track I'd followed appeared to dead end here. I would need to backtrack and find another way around the fallen tree once the storm passed. As I zoomed out on the map, something caught my attention, a pattern to the unmarked areas around Mariah. They formed almost a perfect circle around the town, as if deliberately left blank. Before I could consider the implications, a noise from the far end of the building froze me in place. The distinctive sound of a door creaking open, followed by hushed voices and the beam of another flashlight cutting through the darkness. I quickly killed my light and pressed myself against the wall behind a piece of rusted machinery, praying I hadn't been spotted. "I'm telling you, I saw headlights coming this way," a gruff male voice insisted. "Has to be that outsider from town, the one with the camera." A second voice responded, softer but somehow more chilling. "Better hope we find him before the hungry ones do. Full moon's tomorrow night." Their flashlight beams swept methodically through the building, moving in my direction. I held my breath, frantically searching for an escape route. To my left, I spotted what appeared to be a narrow stairway leading to some kind of loft or second level. Moving as silently as possible, I crept toward it, freezing whenever the flashlight beams came close. Just as I reached the stairs, my foot came down on something that crunched loudly. Looking down, I realized with horror that I'd stepped on what appeared to be a human finger bone, bleached white with time, but unmistakable in its shape. "Did you hear that?" The voices fell silent as their flashlight beams converged on the area where I'd just been standing. I was already halfway up the rickety stairs, moving as quietly as possible despite the ancient wood creaking under my weight. The second level appeared to be some kind of office or observation area overlooking the main floor, a perfect vantage point under different circumstances, but now potentially a trap with no obvious second exit. I ducked behind a rotting desk just as flashlight beams swept up the stairwell. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain they could hear it even over the rain hammering on the metal roof. "Check upstairs," the gruff voice ordered. "I'll make sure he ain't hiding among the hanging racks." I frantically scanned the office space for any escape route or weapon. The room contained decaying furniture, moldy papers scattered across the floor, and a large broken window overlooking the facility floor. Outside the window, a narrow catwalk ran along the wall, dangerous in this weather, but potentially my only option if cornered. Heavy footsteps started up the stairs, slow and deliberate. Through gaps in the floorboards, I could see the second man moving among what I now realized were not equipment, but elaborate rack systems with chains and hooks, the kind used in slaughterhouses. Fresh bloodstains marked the concrete floor beneath them. This wasn't an abandoned logging facility. It was something far more sinister. "We know you're up here, stranger," came a voice from the top of the stairs. "Ain't no way out except past me, and I ain't in a patient mood tonight." I could see his silhouette now, tall and broad-shouldered, holding something that looked alarmingly like a meat hook in one hand and a flashlight in the other. He began methodically checking behind each piece of furniture, moving steadily in my direction. "You've wandered into something you don't understand," he continued, his tone almost conversational. "Might go easier for you if you come out now. Otherwise," he let the threat hang in the air, the metal hook catching the light as he swung it idly. I weighed my options. Make a break for the catwalk through the broken window, try to rush past him to the stairs, or remain hidden and hope for a miracle. The decision was made for me when the beam of his flashlight caught the toe of my shoe protruding from behind the desk. "There you are," he said, a smile evident in his voice though I couldn't see his face clearly. "No more running now." As he advanced toward my hiding spot, I grabbed the heaviest object within reach, a rusted metal paperweight, and hurled it through the intact portion of the window facing the factory floor. The glass shattered spectacularly, the noise momentarily disorienting my pursuer. In that split second of distraction, I lunged for the broken window I'd spotted earlier, throwing myself onto the catwalk outside. The metal walkway was slick with rain and rust, swaying precariously under my sudden weight. I could hear shouting from inside as both men realized where I'd gone. "He's on the outside catwalk. Cut him off at the far end." The path ahead curved around the building, presumably leading to another entrance, or possibly a fire escape. I moved as quickly as I dared on the treacherous surface, gusts of wind threatening to throw me off balance with each step. The storm had intensified, lightning illuminating the clearing in strobes that revealed something that made my blood run cold. More figures emerging from the tree line, moving with that same unnatural gait I'd seen earlier, converging on the building. They were dressed in what appeared to be crude ceremonial garb, burlap clothes adorned with bones, antlers, and tree bark fashioned into disturbing masks that covered their entire heads. Even from this height, I could see they weren't carrying conventional weapons, but their hands ended in what looked like elongated fingers or perhaps crude implements strapped to their arms, sharp and glinting in the lightning flashes. "The hungry ones are here early," I heard one of the men inside shout, panic evident in his voice. "Full moon ain't till tomorrow." The response chilled me. They can smell the outsider. They know he's seen them in his pictures. Whatever these hungry ones were, they were somehow connected to the photos I'd taken in town, and they were here for me. I reached the end of the catwalk where it connected to a rusted fire escape, my potential route down and away from this nightmare. But as I placed my weight on the first step, the entire structure groaned ominously. Decades of exposure had weakened the metal to the point of failure. I had seconds to decide: risk the deteriorating fire escape or go back inside and face my human pursuers, who now seemed equally frightened of the approaching figures. A crash from inside the building made the decision for me. The door to the office had been broken down. "Where'd he go?" the gruff voice demanded. I took a deep breath and began my descent on the fire escape, wincing at each groan and creak of the metal. I'd made it halfway down when the worst happened. The bolts securing the structure to the building gave way with a sickening sound of tearing metal. Time seemed to slow as the fire escape peeled away from the wall like a giant metal banana skin. I clung desperately to the railing as the entire structure collapsed, twisting and folding in on itself as it crashed to the ground. Pain exploded through my left shoulder and leg as I landed among the twisted metal. Somehow, I'd avoided being crushed, but I wasn't unscathed. Through the haze of pain, I became aware of two immediate threats. The men now leaning out of the broken window above, shouting and pointing in my direction, and the circle of masked figures who had stopped their advance about 50 yards away, standing perfectly still in the rain, all facing toward me. I struggled to my feet, ignoring the screaming pain in my leg, and made the only choice available. I limped toward the van as fast as my injured body would allow. Every step was agony as I forced my injured leg to support my weight, rain lashing against my face and thunder cracking overhead like the world itself was breaking apart. Behind me, I could hear shouting from the building and the heavy footfalls of my pursuers exiting to give chase. But more terrifying was what I saw happening with the masked figures. They had begun some kind of rhythmic swaying, their bodies moving in perfect unison despite standing yards apart from each other. As another lightning flash illuminated the scene, I saw something that defied explanation. Their forms seemed to be changing, elongating, the crude masks merging with their faces as their bodies contorted into something no longer recognizably human. I reached my van and fumbled with the keys, my hands slippery with rain and blood from cuts sustained in the fall. The engine started immediately this time, small mercies, and I slammed the vehicle into drive, tires spinning in the mud before finding traction. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I could see two distinct threats. The men from the building running toward me, one now carrying what appeared to be a rifle, and the transformed figures beginning to lope forward with unnatural speed, moving on all fours like animals, yet with limbs too long, too jointed to be natural predators. I gunned the engine, aiming for the narrow gap between these two forces, praying the van's weight and momentum would see me through. The men opened fire as I approached, bullets pinging off metal and shattering my passenger window. I ducked instinctively, nearly losing control on the slick ground. One of the masked creatures leapt with impossible strength, landing on my hood with enough force to crack the windshield. Through the spiderweb of glass, I found myself staring into what had once been a human face, but was now a nightmare of elongated features, jagged teeth protruding from a mouth that split far wider than any human jaw should allow. Its eyes reflected the light like an animal's, pupils narrowed to vertical slits that focused on me with unmistakable hunger. Acting on pure instinct, I slammed on the brakes while cranking the wheel, sending the creature flying off the hood. I corrected course and accelerated down the muddy track, the same way I'd come in. My side mirror showed the chaotic scene behind me. The men and creatures actually fighting each other now, as if my escape had triggered some kind of territorial dispute. The implications were too disturbing to contemplate as I focused on the treacherous drive ahead. The narrow track was now a flowing stream of mud that threatened to pull my wheels into the ditch with each curve. My injured shoulder made steering difficult, and the pain in my leg had settled into a throbbing rhythm that matched my racing heartbeat. I had no plan beyond putting distance between myself and that facility, finding the main road, and getting as far from Mariah as possible. The fallen tree that had blocked my original path came into view, illuminated by my headlights. In my panic earlier, I hadn't fully assessed the situation. Now I could see that while the massive trunk indeed blocked the road, there might be just enough space to squeeze by on the right side where the tree's smaller branches lay. It would be tight, certainly scraping my van and possibly worse, but it was my only option with the sound of pursuit growing louder behind me. I slowed enough to carefully align my van, then accelerated forward, wincing at the cacophony of branches and undergrowth scraping against metal as I forced my way through the narrow gap. The van shuddered and protested but kept moving forward until, with a final lurch, I broke free onto the main dirt road. Relief was short-lived as my headlights revealed new obstacles ahead. 3 pickup trucks parked horizontally across the road, forming a makeshift roadblock. Figures stood in front of the vehicles, shotguns clearly visible even through the rain. They'd anticipated my escape route. Braking wasn't an option on the slick road, nor was turning around to face what pursued me from behind. With no time to second guess, I yanked the wheel hard, taking my van off-road into the forest itself. It was a desperate move, one that no sensible driver would attempt in these conditions, but survival trumped caution. The van bounced violently over roots and rocks, branches shattering against the windshield as I carved a new path through the trees, guided only by the need to maintain a direction perpendicular to the road, hoping to eventually intersect with another route out of this nightmare. The forest grew denser, progress slower, as my van sustained damage with each yard gained. The temperature gauge was rising into the red zone. Something vital had been damaged in my off-road exodus. Steam began to leak from under the hood, joining the rain that penetrated through my shattered windows. Just when it seemed my vehicle would give out entirely, the trees thinned, and my headlights illuminated what appeared to be another, wider road ahead. Hope surged as I recognized a state highway, weathered but paved, leading away from Mariah and potentially toward safety. I broke through the final line of trees and onto blessed asphalt, the van protesting but still running as I turned in the direction that I prayed led to the next town. I'd covered perhaps 2 miles of highway when the engine finally gave out, coughing and sputtering before dying completely. Momentum carried me to the shoulder where the van rolled to a stop, steam billowing from under the hood. The digital clock on my dash displayed 2:17 a.m. The longest night of my life was still far from over. Through the rear window, I could see no immediate signs of pursuit, but that offered little comfort. My phone still showed no service, and I was injured, lost on a deserted highway in the middle of a storm. The choices were bleak. Remain with the disabled vehicle until daylight or start walking in hopes of reaching another town or at least finding cell reception. As I weighed these options, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror, approaching slowly from the direction of Mariah. The approaching vehicle slowed as it neared my broken-down van, its high beams nearly blinding me through the rearview mirror. Fight or flight instinct took over. I grabbed my backpack with my few essential belongings and stumbled out the driver's side door, immediately seeking cover in the drainage ditch beside the highway. Rain continued to fall in sheets, quickly soaking through my already damp clothes and mixing with the blood from my injuries. From my hiding place, I watched as a para-sheriff's cruiser pulled alongside my van. Under normal circumstances, law enforcement would have been a welcome sight. After what I'd witnessed in Mariah, I wasn't taking any chances on who might be wearing that uniform. The cruiser's spotlight switched on, sweeping across my abandoned vehicle and the surrounding area. "This is the sheriff's department," a voice announced over the patrol car's loudspeaker. "We know you're nearby. Come out slowly with your hands visible." I remained motionless, weighing my options. The drainage ditch ran parallel to the highway, potentially offering a route to crawl away undetected, but my injured leg might give me away. The alternative, revealing myself to what might be legitimate help or might be part of the Mariah conspiracy, seemed equally dangerous. The deputy exited his vehicle, flashlight in one hand, the other resting on his holstered weapon. He approached my van cautiously, peering inside before speaking into his radio. "Dispatch, I've located the vehicle from the Bolo. California plates matching description. Vehicle appears abandoned, signs of recent damage." The mention of a Bolo, "be on lookout," sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with my soaked clothing. How had word already spread about me? What story were they telling to justify hunting me down? The deputy continued his inspection of my van, shining his light on the bullet holes in the side and the damaged hood where the creature had landed. His radio crackled with a response I couldn't make out clearly over the rain, but his reply was illuminating. "Negative on occupant. Appears the suspect fled on foot. Multiple impact points consistent with gunfire. Request additional units and the special response team from Mariah." Special response team. The pieces were falling into place. Whatever was happening in Mariah had official protection, or at least the appearance of it. More headlights appeared on the horizon, approaching rapidly from the direction the deputy had come. I needed to move now, before reinforcements arrived and expanded the search area. Ignoring the pain shooting through my leg, I began crawling through the drainage ditch, using the sound of the rain to mask any noise I made. The deputy was still occupied with my van, his attention focused on documenting the scene rather than searching the immediate surroundings. I'd covered perhaps 50 yards when I heard vehicles pulling up, multiple sets of tires on wet asphalt, doors opening and slamming shut, voices calling out instructions. Among the authoritative shouts, I caught a phrase that made my blood run cold. "Remember, we need him alive. The hungry ones can't complete the ritual without a willing sacrifice." Willing sacrifice. The words echoed in my mind as I continued my painful crawl through mud and rainwater. What kind of horror had I stumbled into? The child's voice on the phone replayed in my memory. "You shouldn't have taken pictures of the hungry ones." Somehow, my ordinary travel photos had captured something they needed to keep hidden, something related to these creatures and whatever ritual they were planning under the full moon. I reached a culvert where the drainage ditch passed under a small access road. Perfect temporary shelter from both the rain and searching eyes. I dragged myself inside, fighting back a cry of pain as my injured leg scraped against the concrete edge. From my new vantage point, I could see flashlight beams sweeping the area around my abandoned van, now surrounded by 3 police cruisers and 2 unmarked pickup trucks. Men in both police uniforms and civilian clothes moved with purpose, organizing into search patterns. Dog barks joined the cacophony. They brought tracking animals. My temporary hiding place wouldn't remain secure for long. I needed to keep moving, find a way to contact outside help, or at least get far enough from Mariah that whatever influence they wielded didn't reach. The culvert continued on the other side of the access road, leading away from the highway and into what appeared to be dense woodland. With no better options, I continued my journey through the concrete tunnel, emerging into another section of drainage ditch that veered away from my pursuers. The ditch gradually broadened and deepened as it descended into lower terrain, the trickle of rainwater growing into a more substantial flow that both helped conceal my movements and made progress more difficult. After what felt like hours, but was likely only 40 minutes of grueling advance, I found myself at the edge of what appeared to be extensive wetlands, a cypress swamp stretching out before me, black water reflecting the still raging storm above. The search parties were distant now, their lights just barely visible through the trees behind me. I faced an impossible choice: risk the treacherous swamp in my injured state or attempt to circle back towards civilization on land, potentially running directly into my pursuers. I chose the swamp, reasoning that the tracking dogs would lose my scent in the water and the searchers would be less eager to wade into the treacherous terrain. Using a fallen branch as a makeshift walking stick, I eased myself into the shallow water at the swamp's edge, each step an exercise in caution and pain management. The water rose gradually to my waist as I pushed deeper into the cypress forest, navigating by the occasional lightning flash and what little ambient light penetrated the storm clouds. Time lost all meaning in that primal landscape of water, wood, and darkness. I might have been moving for minutes or hours, pushing from one tree to the next, stopping occasionally to rest against the broad trunks when my strength began to fail. The chorus of frogs and insects that should have filled a Louisiana swamp was eerily absent, as if the local wildlife knew to avoid this place. Dawn was breaking when I finally saw something that didn't belong in the natural landscape. A structure rising from a slight elevation in the swamp. A small island hosting what appeared to be a dilapidated cabin. Shelter, potentially dry ground, maybe even supplies or a radio. The sight gave me a desperate second wind as I pushed toward it. Only when I was nearly upon the weathered wooden structure did I notice the symbols carved into the support posts. Crude representations of elongated human figures with too many joints, surrounding a central circle that reminded me unpleasantly of a gaping mouth. Above the door hung animal skulls in various stages of decay, arranged in a pattern too deliberate to be random. This was no random hunter's cabin. It was connected to the horror I was fleeing. But before I could retreat, the door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman silhouetted against a faint light from within. "I've been expecting you," she said simply, her voice thick with the local accent, but somehow different from the others I'd encountered, softer, sadder. "Seen you in my dreams 3 nights running. The outsider who'd see too much. Come inside before they find you. Time's running short." Every instinct screamed danger, but my body had reached its limit. I was hypothermic, injured, and had nowhere else to go. As if reading my thoughts, she added, "If I meant you harm, I'd just let the hungry ones find you. They always do eventually." With no real choice, I followed her inside the cabin, where a small fire provided the only illumination. The single room was sparsely furnished but meticulously clean, walls covered in more of the disturbing symbols alongside dried herbs and what appeared to be protective charms. "Sit," she instructed, gesturing to a chair near the fire. "You got questions. I got answers. But when we're done talking, you got a choice to make, the hardest choice of your life." The old woman, who introduced herself simply as Mama Cecile, tended to my wounds with surprising skill, applying poultices of strange-smelling herbs that numbed the pain almost instantly. As she worked, she spoke in a steady stream, unraveling the nightmare I'd stumbled into. "Mariah ain't like other places," she explained. "Founded back in 1845 by settlers who came here starving after their wagon train got lost. Story goes they survived by making a deal with something that lived in these swamps, something old that was here long before people. The hungry ones. They promised regular tributes in exchange for prosperity. The town's unsettling history unfolded like a horror story. Generations of inhabitants protected from hardship through regular sacrifices, initially of livestock, but eventually of human victims, typically outsiders passing through who wouldn't be missed. Every full moon they need feeding," she continued. "But the true ceremony comes just once a year, when they need something more, a sacrifice that comes willingly, eyes open to what's happening." She gestured to the wall where dozens of photographs hung in neat rows. Missing persons flyers, newspaper clippings, and what appeared to be developed photos taken from cameras. All these folks came through Moriah, all noticed something wasn't right. Most tried to run, like you. Some made it far as this cabin, seeking help from the swamp witch. Her eyes, milky with cataracts yet somehow all-seeing, fixed on me with terrible knowledge. None made it past this point. Either I send them back to town for the sacrifice, or the hungry ones take me instead. Been the deal for 40 years, since I tried to escape myself. The sun had fully risen, filtering strange green light through the cypress trees surrounding the cabin. In the distance, I could hear voices calling, dogs barking. The search had reached the swamp. Mama Cecile sighed heavily, rising from her chair with the help of a gnarled walking stick. They'll be here soon. Always know where to find my cabin when they need to. She pulled back a ragged curtain, revealing a small rear window that looked out onto a narrow waterway and what appeared to be a small, weathered boat tied to a crude dock. There's my escape route. Take it, and you might make it to the parish line before they catch you. Or, she turned back to me, eyes gleaming in the firelight. You can end the cycle. Generations of blood and pain. She explained that as the unwitting keeper of the hungry ones, she knew their weakness. The original pact could be broken if a would-be sacrifice willingly returned to town, but, instead of submitting, destroyed the ceremonial site hidden beneath the processing facility I'd fled from. Their powers bound to an object there, an old stone carved with the same marks you see here. Smash it during the full moon while they're feeding, and the hungry ones lose their hold on this world. The choice she offered was impossible. Certain capture if I returned to Moriah on the slim chance I could locate and destroy this stone during the ritual, or potential escape that would leave the town and its monstrous arrangement intact for future victims. Before I could decide, a gunshot rang out, splintering the cabin's door. They're here, Mama Cecile whispered. Choose now, run or end it. The impossible choice became clear as I looked at the wall of missing faces, decades of victims who had stood exactly where I stood now. If I ran, I might temporarily save myself, but would condemn countless future innocents to the same fate. Tell me how to destroy the stone, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Mama Cecile's face transformed with the first genuine smile I'd seen, relief and hope mingling in her aged features. As the search party closed in on the cabin, she quickly explained what I needed to know: the hidden entrance to the ceremonial chamber, the specific ritual items I would need to handle the stone, and most importantly, how to use the hungry one's feeding frenzy against them. When the door finally burst open, officers rushing in with weapons drawn, they found me sitting calmly by the fire. I surrender, I told them simply, meeting the sheriff's surprised gaze. Take me back to Moriah? I understand now. I've seen the truth in the photos, and I'm ready for the ceremony. Behind the officers' backs, Mama Cecile slipped away through her escape route, the first time in 40 years she'd been freed from her role as gatekeeper. As they led me away in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't expected, not fear, but grim determination. Tonight was the full moon, and tonight would end the hungry one's reign over Moriah, one way or another. The officers transported me back to town in silence, exchanging meaningful glances in the rearview mirror as I sat docile in the back seat. My apparent willingness to participate had clearly unsettled them. They'd expected resistance, fear, perhaps even the need for force. Instead, they found themselves escorting a lamb who seemed eager for slaughter. What they couldn't see was the makeshift pouch Mama Cecile had slipped into my pocket before they burst in, containing herbs, powders, and a small, jagged stone that hummed with strange energy against my thigh. You'll need blood of your own freely given to touch their stone, she had whispered as she pressed it into my hand. And you'll need their attention elsewhere when you do. Moriah looked different in daylight, a forgotten town slowly being reclaimed by the surrounding wilderness, buildings sagging as if exhausted by the weight of their secrets. Locals watched our procession with solemn eyes as the police cruiser carried me to the center of town where the processing facility stood. Now I could see it clearly, an industrial slaughterhouse from another era, converted to purposes far more sinister than its original design. The faded sign above the entrance read, Moriah Meat Packing Company, ST 1847, with a crude logo depicting cattle being led to market. The sheriff himself escorted me inside, where a group of the town's elders had already gathered. I recognized several faces from my photographs. The elderly man outside the general store, the bartender who'd been so curious about my travels, the gas station attendant who'd given me directions to scenic areas. They regarded me with a mixture of relief and guilt, none meeting my eyes for long. "You understand what's happening," the sheriff said. It wasn't a question. "Makes things easier when they don't fight it." "I saw them in my photos," I replied. "The hungry ones. They've been here all along, haven't they? Living among you." An older woman stepped forward. "The mayor perhaps, or some other authority figure." "Not among us," she corrected. "Beneath us. Around us. Waiting. They were here before Mariah existed, and they'll be here long after we're gone unless they're fed according to the pact." She gestured to the building around us. "This town would have died decades ago like so many others if not for the arrangement. No jobs, no future, nothing to keep the young folks from leaving. The hungry ones give us prosperity in exchange for sustenance." They led me to a small room where I was instructed to clean myself and don a simple white garment laid out on a wooden bench. No restraints, no guards posted at the door. They were confident in my compliance. The moment alone was brief but precious, allowing me to verify the contents of Mama Cecile's pouch remained intact and to formulate the beginnings of a plan. The stone she'd given me was unlike any rock I'd seen before. Seemingly ordinary river stone, yet warm to the touch, marked with symbols that matched those from her cabin walls. Night fell with excruciating slowness as I was kept in isolation, presumably to contemplate my fate. From my window, I watched the full moon rise over the pines, casting silver light across the town. At precisely midnight, they came for me, the elders now dressed in ceremonial robes adorned with those same unsettling symbols I'd seen throughout my ordeal. They formed a procession leading me deeper into the facility, down staircases I hadn't noticed during my frantic escape the night before, into subterranean levels that predated the slaughterhouse above. The walls changed from industrial concrete to rough-hewn stone, the air growing thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, that same sweetish, metallic odor I'd noticed before, stronger now, nauseating. The ceremonial chamber was vast, a natural cavern enhanced by human hands over generations. Crude stone pillars supported the ceiling, each carved with scenes depicting the town's history, the starving settlers, their encounter with the hungry ones, the first sacrifices, and the prosperity that followed. At the center stood a raised dais where a single object commanded attention. A black stone obelisk about 4 feet tall, its surface writhing with what appeared to be inscriptions, but on closer inspection were actually moving patterns within the stone itself, like living things trapped just beneath the surface. The townspeople gathered in a circle around the dais, their expressions a mixture of reverence and fear. Beyond them, in the shadows at the chamber's edge, I caught glimpses of movement, elongated figures shifting restlessly, the hungry ones held back only by the ceremony's protocol. They sensed the coming feast and grew impatient. "The offering will approach the stone," intoned the sheriff, who had exchanged his uniform for ceremonial robes that marked him as the ritual's leader. With eyes open to his fate, with heart willing and spirit unbound. This was the moment Mama Cecile had prepared me for. I stepped forward, reaching surreptitiously into the hidden pouch. As I ascended the dais steps, I felt the hungry one's attention fix on me like a physical weight, their hunger a palpable force pressing against my mind. The obelisk pulsed with unnatural light as I approached, the patterns within it moving more frantically, almost eagerly. "Place your hands upon the sacred stone," the sheriff instructed, "and receive the blessing of the hungry ones." Instead, I withdrew Mama Cecile's stone from my pocket, slashing my palm on its jagged edge. Blood welled immediately, freely given, as she had instructed. The assembled townspeople gasped at this deviation from the ritual, but before they could intervene, I flung the contents of the pouch onto the obelisk. The mixture of herbs and powders sizzled on contact with the stone, releasing an acrid smoke that filled the chamber. The effect on the hungry ones was immediate and dramatic. They emerged from the shadows howling, no longer the controlled predators I'd encountered in the forest, but frenzied creatures driven by bloodlust. Chaos erupted as the townspeople scattered, the hungry ones no longer bound by the ritual's constraints. In the confusion, I pressed my bleeding palm against the obelisk, reciting the words Mama Cecile had made me memorize, sounds that felt wrong in a human mouth, language older than civilization. The stone grew hot beneath my touch, the patterns within it swirling violently, as if trying to escape. "What have you done?" the sheriff screamed over the cacophony, his face twisted with fury and terror. "You'll doom us all." "I'm ending it," I replied, continuing the incantation as the stone began to crack beneath my palm. "No more sacrifices. No more hungry ones." The chamber shook as the hungry ones converged on the townspeople, centuries of controlled feeding giving way to primal savagery. The pact had been twisted. Mama Cecile's knowledge turned their ceremony inside out, redirecting their hunger toward those who had served them rather than the intended sacrifice. I alone stood protected by my freely given blood, and the words I continued to chant as the obelisk fractured further, deep fissures spreading across its surface. With a sound like the earth itself crying out in pain, the obelisk shattered. A shockwave of energy knocked me backwards off the dais as the chamber's ceiling began to collapse. The hungry ones screamed, not in anger but in agony, their elongated bodies contorting as they were pulled toward the fragments of the broken stone, their essence being reclaimed by the artifact that had anchored them to this world. One by one they dissolved into the same writhing patterns I'd seen within the obelisk, drawn back into their prison as the pact was broken. I dragged myself toward the chamber entrance as the collapse accelerated, massive chunks of ceiling raining down around me. The townspeople who hadn't been taken by the hungry ones were fleeing as well, all ceremonial dignity forgotten in the race for survival. The entire facility was coming down, decades of unnatural energy suddenly released in a catastrophic chain reaction. By some miracle, I reached the stairs and began the agonizing climb upward, each step a testament to human will against supernatural horror. The night air hit my lungs like a blessing as I finally emerged into the moonlight, stumbling away from the building just before it imploded, folding in on itself with an otherworldly howl that echoed across the town. I collapsed onto the street, watching as lights came on in distant houses, confused residents emerging to witness the destruction of their town's dark heart. Some would know what had happened. Others had been kept ignorant of the arrangement that sustained their community. All would now face a future without the hungry one's influence, for better or worse. Dawn found me miles from Mariah, having walked through the night along the highway until a trucker stopped to offer me a ride. He asked no questions about my bloodied, bedraggled appearance beyond whether I needed a hospital, and I declined. Physical wounds would heal, the other scars would take longer. I gave him a false name and a vague story about a camping trip gone wrong, which he accepted with the casual disinterest of someone accustomed to minding his own business. As we drove east toward the state line, I scrolled through the photographs on my salvaged phone, the ones that had started this nightmare. In the harsh light of day, they showed exactly what you'd expect: buildings, landscapes, ordinary people going about their business. Whatever the hungry ones truly were, whatever aspect of them my camera had captured, was gone now, visible only in my memories and nightmares. 1 week later, I stood on a beach in Florida, watching the sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. My injuries were healing, my van replaced with a more modest model purchased with the last of my savings. The news had carried brief mentions of a structural collapse in a small Louisiana town, noting with relief that there had been minimal casualties. No mention of vanished townspeople, no investigations into centuries of missing travelers. Some secrets remain buried, even in the information age. I've started a new online journal, different from my previous Vanlife account. This one documents forgotten places, small towns with strange histories, local legends and folklore. Not to expose or exploit, but to remember and record. To keep watch. Because if there were hungry ones in Mariah, there might be other ancient things making pacts with desperate communities in forgotten corners of America. My camera hangs around my neck once again, but I look at the world differently now, paying attention to what lurks at the edges of the frame, to the faces in the background watching the photographer rather than the other way around. I've learned to recognize the signs of secrets too heavy to carry, of bargains made in times of desperation. And sometimes, in my dreams, I see Mama Cecile in her swamp cabin, smiling her gap-toothed smile as she tends to her herbs and protective charms. There are always hungry ones in this world, she tells me in these dreams. We're them fragments of the black stone I gave you. Keep yourself safe. Keep watching. Keep remembering. The amulet I fashioned from the stone that shattered the obelisk hangs warm against my chest, a constant reminder of Mariah, of the choice I made, of the hungry ones who no longer walk among us, but whose echoes remain in the dark places of the world. At least, that's what I tell myself on the good days. On bad days, when the nightmares are strongest and unfamiliar towns seem too quiet, too prosperous with no visible means of support, I find myself checking my photographs obsessively, looking for elongated figures at the edges, looking for hungry ones watching me through the eyes of strangers, looking for confirmation that I truly ended it, and not just changed who they haunt. I'm Aloan Trahan, 29 years old, and I call Asheville, North Carolina home. For the past year, I've been living in my converted Sprinter van, chasing freedom on the open road. It's just me, my van, I named her Juniper, and the endless hum of tires on asphalt. I'm a freelance illustrator, sketching landscapes for clients while parked in places that make my heart race. Mountains, deserts, and now, the murky depths of Louisiana's Atchafalaya Basin. I'd heard the swamp was a world of its own, all gnarled cypresses and water that swallows sound. I wanted to capture its eerie beauty for a new project. That's why I'm here, parked on a narrow dirt pullout off Highway 3177, the kind of spot you'd miss if you blinked. It's late October, and the air's thick with that damp, earthy smell that clings to everything. My van's my sanctuary, cozy string lights, a tiny kitchen, and a bed tucked in the back. I've got my sketch pad, a thermos of coffee, and a playlist of lo-fi beats to keep me company. Earlier, I stopped at a gas station in Bro Bridge, where a cashier named Margie, with a smoker's rasp and a cross necklace, warned me about parking in the swamp alone. "Folks go missing out there," she said, eyes narrowing. I laughed it off, told her I'd camped in worse places. But her words stuck, like a splinter I can't quite dig out. I'm not reckless. I keep a can of pepper spray and a tire iron within reach, but I've never felt unsafe in Juniper. Still, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple, the swamp feels watchful. The pullout's quiet, just the chirp of cicadas and the occasional splash of something moving in the water. I'm sketching the twisted silhouette of a cypress tree when I notice a flicker of light through the woods, maybe a half-mile off. Could be another camper, I tell myself, or a boat on the bayou. I squint, but it's gone as quick as it came. My phone's got no signal out here, typical for these back roads, so I can't check if anyone's posted about nearby campsites. I shake it off and focus on my drawing, but there's this nagging itch, like I'm being sized up. I lock the van's doors, double-check the windows, and tell myself it's just the swamp playing tricks. Margie's warning echoes, but I push it down. I've got work to do. I met a guy named Remy at a diner in Henderson yesterday, a local who said he leads fishing tours in the basin. He was all charm, with a crooked smile and stories about alligators bigger than my van. He offered to show me a secret spot for sketching, but I declined. Solo travel's my thing, and I'm not here to make friends. Remy seemed nice enough, but he lingered a bit too long at my table, asking where I was headed. I kept it vague, said I was exploring. Now, parked in the dark, I wonder if I should have been less chatty. The swamp's so still, it's like it's holding its breath. I sip my coffee, but it's gone cold. Something about this place feels wrong, like I've stumbled into a story that's already started. I try to focus on my sketch, but my pencil keeps slipping. The light I saw earlier hasn't reappeared, but I can't shake the sense that I'm not alone. I tell myself it's just the isolation messing with me. Happens sometimes when you're off-grid too long. I've camped in deserts where coyotes howled all night, and I slept fine. But this is different. The swamp's alive in a way I can't explain, like it's got eyes. I glance at the pepper spray on my counter, then back at my sketch pad. I'm probably just tired, I think. I'll finish this drawing, crawl into bed, and leave at first light. That's the plan, anyway. But plans have a way of falling apart out here. I decide to step outside for some air, clear my head. The night's cool, but the humidity sticks to my skin like a second shirt. I leave the van's door cracked, just enough to hear my music faintly. The stars are sharp, cutting through the canopy of moss-draped trees. I take a deep breath, letting the swamp's scent, mud, decay, life, fill my lungs. It's beautiful in a raw, untamed way. The kind of place that makes you feel small. I'm about to head back inside when I hear it. A low hum, like an engine, faint but growing closer. My stomach twists. Who'd be driving out here at this hour? I freeze, straining to listen, one hand on the van's door. The hum fades, then stops altogether. Maybe it was a boat, I tell myself, or someone passing on the highway. But the silence that follows is heavier, like the swamps waiting for something to happen. I slip back into Juniper, lock the door, and dim the string lights. My heart's thumping, but I tell myself I'm overreacting. It's just a noise, Eloan. Get a grip. I grab my sketch pad again, but my hands are shaky and the lines come out wrong. I don't know what's got me so rattled, but I can't shake the feeling that I've made a mistake coming here. Something's out there, and it's not just the swamp. I'm hunched over my sketch pad, but my lines are all wrong, jagged like my nerves. The swamp's silence is suffocating, pressing against Juniper's walls. I keep glancing at the windows, half expecting to see a face staring back. That engine hum from earlier hasn't returned, but it's left me jumpy, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I decide to call it a night. Maybe sleep will reset my brain. But as I reach for my blanket, my phone buzzes. It's got no signal, so I'm confused until I see it's just a low battery warning. Great. I forgot to charge it at the diner yesterday. I dig out my portable charger, but the cable's frayed, barely holding a connection. Of course, this is when I need to call for help, right? The thought's disturbing, like the swamp's conspiring to keep me cut off. I crawl into bed, pulling the curtain across the back window. It's flimsy, more for vibes than privacy, and I curse myself for not investing in blackout shades. The string lights are off, but moonlight filters through, casting weird shapes on the ceiling. I try to focus on my breathing, like I did when I camped in the Mojave and a windstorm rocked the van all night. But this isn't wind. It's something else, something scary that's got my gut in knots. I think about Margie's warning again, folks going missing. Was she just messing with me, or does she know something I don't? I wish I'd asked her more, maybe gotten a name or a story. Too late now. I'm almost drifting off when I hear it. A soft thump, like something brushed against the van. My eyes snap open, heart pounding. I hold my breath, listening. Nothing. Maybe it was an animal, a raccoon or a nutria, those big swamp rats Remy mentioned. But it felt deliberate, like a test. I grab the pepper spray, clutching it like a lifeline, and creep to the side window. The glass is fogged from the humidity, so I wipe it with my sleeve. Outside, the swamp looks still, but it's too dark to see much beyond the nearest trees. I tell myself I'm paranoid, but the hair on my neck's standing up, and that's never a good sign. This place is starting to feel like a trap. I debate my options. I could pack up and drive out now, find a Walmart lot or something safer. But it's pitch black, and these back roads are a maze. Remy said people get lost here all the time. My GPS was spotty even getting to this pullout. Plus, I'm bone tired, and driving half asleep is a recipe for disaster. I think about the time I nearly nodded off on a Nevada highway, swerving at the last second. No, better to stay put till morning. But staying feels wrong too, like I'm ignoring a warning written in the swamp's murky water. I compromise. I'll sleep with the pepper spray in hand and the keys in the ignition, ready to bolt if I need to. As I settle back, I notice my sketch pad's fallen open to a page I don't remember drawing. It's a rough sketch of a figure, hunched and faceless, standing among cypresses. My stomach lurches. I don't draw people ever. It's always landscapes, clean and safe. Did I scribble this half asleep? The lines are too precise, too intentional. It's horrifying, like someone else held the pencil. I slam the pad shut, shoving it under my pillow. My mind's racing, piecing together fragments. Remy's lingering questions, Margie's warning, that flickering light. Was it closer than I thought? I'm starting to wonder if I'm alone out here, or if someone's been watching me since Henderson. I try to distract myself by organizing my tiny kitchen, spoons in one drawer, spices in another. It's a trick I use when anxiety hits, like when I got stuck in a Montana snowstorm with no cell service. But tonight, it's not working. Every creak of the van, every rustle outside, feels like a threat. I'm about to double-check the locks when I hear another sound. A low, rhythmic tapping, like fingers on metal. It's coming from the back door. My blood runs cold. It's not an animal. Too steady, too human. I freeze, praying it stops, but it doesn't. It's slow, deliberate, like whoever's out there knows I'm listening. The swamp's silence makes it louder, more disturbing. I inch toward the driver's seat, keys in one hand, pepper spray in the other. My plan's simple. Start the van, floor it, don't look back. But as I slide into the seat, I see something that makes my heart stop. The side mirror's angled wrong, like someone adjusted it while I was inside. I didn't touch it. I always park the same way, always check my mirrors. Someone's been here, close enough to mess with Juniper. The tapping stops, replaced by a faint rustle, like footsteps retreating into the trees. I grip the keys, torn between starting the engine and waiting to see what happens next. Whatever's out there, it's not done with me. My hand's shaking so bad I can barely fit the key in the ignition. The side mirror's wrong angle glares at me, proof someone's been messing with Juniper. The swamp's gone dead quiet. No tapping, no rustling. Just this suffocating stillness that's scarier than any noise. I'm about to turn the key when I hear it. A voice, low and muffled, coming from just outside the van. It's not words I can make out, more like a chant, rhythmic and wrong. My skin crawls. I clutch the pepper spray, heart hammering so loud I'm sure whoever's out there can hear it. I want to believe it's just some local pulling a prank, like the time kids in Oregon threw rocks at my van to spook me. But this feels different, horrifying, like I've stumbled into something I was never meant to see. I peek through the windshield, straining to see past the moonlight's glare. There's movement, shadows shifting between the cypresses, too big to be animals. Two figures, maybe three, moving slow, like they're circling the pullout. My stomach drops. This isn't a prank. I think of Margie's warning about people going missing and the news stories I skimmed about Louisiana's backroads. Folks vanishing, never found. Was that light I saw earlier a signal? My mind flashes to Remy, his two friendly questions about my plans. Did he follow me? I shake my head, trying to focus. Paranoia is not helping, but the chant's getting louder, closer, and it's got this disturbing edge, like a prayer gone rotten. I slide low in the driver's seat, praying they haven't seen me. The van's dark, but Juniper's white paint glows under the moon, a dead giveaway. I curse myself for not parking under thicker cover. Rookie mistake. I've camped in sketchy spots before, like that ghost town in Arizona where I swore I saw a figure watching me, but I always had a way out. Here, the road's a single lane, hemmed by water and trees. If they block it, I'm screwed. The chanting stops, and for a second, I think they're gone. Then a beam of light slices through the dark, a flashlight, sweeping across the van's side. I duck, breath hitching. They know I'm here. The light lingers, painting the windows with a sick yellow glow. I hear footsteps now, heavy, deliberate, crunching on the gravel. Someone's right outside, close enough I can hear their breathing, ragged and excited. It's terrifying, like they're savoring this. I think about screaming, but who'd hear me out here? My phone's dead, no signal anyway. I'm alone, and that realization hits like a punch. I grip the pepper spray tighter, remembering how I used it once on a creep in a Denver parking lot. But this isn't one guy. There's more, and they're organized. The flashlight moves to the back door, and I hear a faint scrape, like metal on metal. Are they trying to break in? I'm frozen, weighing my odds. Start the van, and they'll hear it, but I might get away. Stay quiet, and maybe they'll move on. But then I hear something that makes my blood run cold. A second voice, clearer now, saying, "She's perfect." Just like he said. My heart stops. They're not random creeps. They're here for me. I flash back to Remy's crooked smile, the way he pressed for details about my route. Did he set me up? The thought's so disturbing it's like a knife in my gut. I don't know who he is, but I'm not sticking around to find out. I jam the key in, ready to floor it, when the back door rattles, hard, like they're prying it open. I turn the key, and Juniper roars to life, headlights cutting through the dark. For a split second, I see them. Two men, faces half hidden under hoods, one holding a crowbar, the other a flashlight. They freeze, caught in the glare, and I swear one of them smiles. It's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen, like they're not afraid of me catching them. I slam the gas, tires spinning on the gravel, but the road's narrow, and I clip a tree, scraping Juniper's side. The men shout, their voices sharp and angry, and I hear footsteps chasing me. I glance in the mirror. They're running, gaining, and there's a third figure now, taller, emerging from the trees. I swerve to avoid a ditch, my hands slick with sweat. The road's a tunnel of cypresses, branches clawing at the van. I don't know where I'm going, just away, anywhere but here. The men's shouts fade, but but I hear an engine now, a truck or something, revving behind me. Headlights flash in my rear view, blinding. They're coming for me, and they're not stopping. My mind's racing, piecing together how I ended up here. Remy, the light, the sketch I didn't draw. It's all connected, and I'm the prey in a game I didn't know I was playing. The swamp's closing in, and I'm running out of road. Juniper's tires scream as I floor it, the swamp's narrow road barely wide enough for the van. Headlights from the truck behind me blaze in the rear view, so close I can't see their grill. My heart's pounding, hands slick on the wheel. I'm dodging potholes and low branches, each scrape against the van like a claw. Those men, those monsters, want me, and their words, "She's perfect," burn in my mind. This is no random chase. It's a hunt, horrifying and deliberate. I think of a news story from Lafayette, a woman snatched from a rest stop, never found. Is that what they're planning? I swerve to avoid a fallen log, nearly fishtailing into the bayou. The truck's still gaining, its engine roaring like a beast. I've got to lose them, or I'm done. The road splits ahead, a faint fork barely visible in the dark. Left looks wider, maybe safer, but right dives deeper into the swamp, all shadows and water. I hesitate, remembering a time I took a wrong turn in Utah and ended up stuck in mud for hours. No time to think. I veer right, hoping the trees will hide me. The truck follows, its lights flickering through the cypresses. I'm driving blind, guided by instinct and panic. The pepper spray's still in my lap, useless now. I glance at the gas gauge, half a tank. I can't outrun them forever. My only shot is to find a town or a highway, but the basin's a maze, and my GPS is just a blank screen. The swamp's swallowing me, and it's terrifying. A sharp curve looms, and I slow just enough to avoid flipping. The truck's right on me, so close I hear its bumper graze Juniper's rear. I scream, a raw, desperate sound. Then I see it, a narrow gap in the trees, barely a path, leading to the water's edge. It's a gamble, but maybe I can lose them there. I yank the wheel, plunging down the path. Branches snap against the windshield, and the van lurches over roots. The truck hesitates, its lights dimming as it struggles to follow. I've bought seconds, maybe minutes. The path ends at a muddy bank, water lapping at the tires. I kill the engine, praying they'll pass by. Silence falls, broken only by my ragged breathing. I crouch low, peering through the side window. The truck stopped, its lights sweeping the trees. I hear voices, angry, urgent, calling out. They're searching for me. My hands shake as I grip the keys, ready to bolt if they get close. I think of hiding in the van once before, during a storm in Colorado, how the thunder felt safer than this. Now, every rustle is a threat, every shadow a killer. A flashlight beam cuts through the dark, inches from Juniper. I bite my lip to keep from whimpering. The men are spreading out, their footsteps squelching in the mud. One's close, too close. I hear him mutter, "She can't be far." It's so disturbing, like I'm prey they've already claimed. I'm trapped, the water blocking my escape. Starting the van now would give me away, but staying's not an option. I grab my backpack, stuffing in my wallet and pepper spray. Maybe I can slip into the swamp, hide in the reeds. It's a crazy plan, like when I hiked alone in Montana and got lost for a day, but I survived that. I ease the side door open, wincing at the faint creak. The air's thick, smelling of rot and fear. I step into the mud, cold water soaking my shoes. The flashlight beam swings my way, and I duck behind a cypress. My heart's racing, the terror so thick I can taste it. I hear a shout. They've spotted the van. I've got seconds to move. I creep along the bank, staying low, the swamp's sounds masking my steps. Frogs croak, water ripples, but the men's voices are louder now, converging on Juniper. I'm maybe 50 yards away when I hear glass shatter. They're breaking in. My stomach twists. That van's my home, my safety, and they're tearing it apart. I want to scream, to fight, but I'm 1 against 3, maybe more. The truck's engine revs again, and I see its lights moving, circling back to the main road. Are they giving up? No, they're cutting off my exit. This is a nightmare, horrifying and relentless. I slip deeper, into the swamp, praying I can outlast them. I'm knee-deep in water now, clinging to a tree to keep from falling. The men's voices fade, but I know they're still out there, waiting. I'm shaking, not just from cold, but from the realization that this was planned. They knew I'd be here, knew I'd be alone. Remy's face flashes in my mind. His smile, his questions. Was he part of this? The thought's so scary it's like a weight on my chest. I've got to keep moving, find a road, a house, anything. But the swamp's endless, and every step feels like a mistake. I hear a splash behind me, too big for an alligator. Someone's following. I grip the pepper spray, ready to fight, but I'm running out of time and hope. I'm wading through the swamp, my legs burning, every splash a scream in the silence. The men's voices are distant now, but that splash behind me was too close, too human. I'm clutching the pepper spray, my only weapon, and trying not to think about how I'm lost. The moon's barely visible, swallowed by clouds, and the cypresses loom like ghosts. I think of a time I got turned around in a forest in Oregon, how I found my way by following a stream. But here, every path is water, and it's leading me nowhere. The terror's choking me, but I keep moving, driven by the horrifying truth. They won't stop until they have me. I need a plan, but my mind's a mess, stuck on that sketch, those words, she's perfect. I spot a faint glow ahead, maybe a house or a boat. Hope sparks, but it's dangerous. I could be walking into a trap. Still, I've got no choice. I slog toward it, mud sucking at my boots. The glow's coming from a shack, half collapsed, on a patch of dry land. It's creepy, like something out of a horror movie, but it's shelter. I crouch behind a tree, watching. No movement, no lights except that faint flicker. I think of the Lafayette kidnapping case, how the victim was lured to a remote spot. Is this their base? My gut says run, but I'm freezing, exhausted. I creep closer, pepper spray ready. The shack's door is ajar, and I hear nothing inside. Maybe it's empty. Maybe I can hide. I slip inside, the floor creaking under my weight. The air's sour, like mildew and something worse, blood, maybe. My stomach lurches. There's a single lantern on a table, casting shadows that dance like demons. I see rope, duct tape, a knife, tools for something horrifying. This isn't a shack, it's a cage. I back toward the door, but it slams shut behind me. I spin, spraying the pepper spray blindly, but no one's there. The door's locked, and I'm trapped. Panic claws at me. I pound on the wood, screaming, but the swamp swallows my voice. Then I hear it, a chuckle, low and cruel, from the corner. A figure steps into the light, and my heart stops. It's Margie, the cashier, her cross necklace glinting. "You shouldn't have come here, darling," Margie says, her rasp now a snarl. I'm frozen, the betrayal so disturbing it's like a physical blow. She wasn't warning me, she was marking me. Remy, the sketch, the men, it was all her, orchestrating this nightmare. I lunge for the knife on the table, but she's faster, grabbing my wrist. She's strong, terrifyingly so, and I'm no match. I think of fighting off a mugger in Asheville once, how I got away by sheer luck. No luck now. Margie's eyes are cold, like I'm not human to her. "They pay good for girls like you," she says, and I realize this is bigger than the basin. A network, a trap I walked right into. I kick at her, desperate, and manage to wrench free, but the shack's a prison. I grab the lantern, smashing it on the floor. Flames erupt, licking the dry wood. Margie screams, lunging at me, but I dodge, the fire spreading fast. I'm coughing, eyes burning, but I ram the door with my shoulder. It gives, and I stumble out, the shack blazing behind me. Margie's still inside, her screams turning to gurgles. I run, the swamp a blur, the heat at my back. I've escaped, but at what cost? The fire's spreading, lighting up the basin, and I hear engines, more of them, coming for me. I'm free, but I'm not safe. I've just made myself a bigger target. I'm sprinting, branches tearing at my skin, when I trip over something soft. I look down. It's a backpack half buried in the mud, with a name tag, Clara Benoit. My blood runs cold. Clara was in the news, a hiker who vanished near Bro Bridge last year. This is where they bring them, where they disappear. The realization's so horrifying I can't breathe. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last unless I get out. But the swamp's alive with lights now, trucks converging. I've burned their hideout, but I've also lit a beacon. My mistake was thinking I could hide. Now they'll hunt me until I'm caught or dead. I keep running, but the swamp's endless, and I'm out of strength. The engines are closer, their lights cutting through the fog. I'm sobbing, my legs giving out. I think of Juniper, my home, probably gutted by now. I think of Asheville, my sketches, the life I'll never get back. I stumble into a clearing, and there's a road. Highway 3177, my salvation. But as I wave for help, a truck pulls up, and my heart sinks. It's not help. It's them. Margie's gone, but her network isn't. A man steps out, smiling like the one I saw in the headlights. "You're a fighter," he says, and I know I'm done. I spray the pepper spray, but it's empty. My last mistake was stopping to hope. The swamp claims me, just like it claimed Clara, and the night goes black. I'm Sigrid Lemoyne, 32 years old, and I live in Boise, Idaho. For 2 years, I've been crisscrossing the country in my van, a beat-up Ford Transit I call Rusty. I'm a part-time yoga instructor, teaching virtual classes from wherever I park. Abita Springs, Louisiana, is my latest stop, a quaint town I found online for its craft beer and nearby trails. I'm parked on a secluded dirt lot off the Tammany Trace, a bike path cutting through pine forests. It's November, and the air's crisp, smelling of damp leaves and earth. Rusty's my home, string lights, a fold-out bed, and a kettle for tea. I'm here to hike, meditate, and maybe find some peace. But something about this place feels off, like the quiet's hiding something scary. Earlier, I grabbed a coffee at a Beta Brew pub, where a waitress named Faye, with tired eyes and a nose ring, asked if I was camping alone. "Be careful out there," she said, glancing at my van keys. I brushed it off, told her I've parked in worse spots, like the Badlands at midnight. But her frown stuck with me, a little disturbing, like she knew something I didn't. I've got a pocket knife and a whistle and Rusty, just in case, but I've never needed them. The lot's empty, just me and the pines, their shadows stretching long as the sun sets. I'm sipping chamomile tea, scrolling through trail maps, when I notice how dark it's gotten. The forest feels heavy, like it's watching me. I step outside to stretch, my yoga mat rolled out beside Rusty. The Tammany Trace is a ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the trees, and it's dead silent. No crickets, no breeze. I'm used to quiet. I've camped in Montana where the stars were my only company. But this silence is different, oppressive, almost horrifying. I try a few sun salutations, but my focus is shot. I keep glancing at the trail, half expecting something to slink out of the dark. I tell myself it's just nerves. Solo travel does that sometimes. Back in Rusty, I lock the doors, double-check the windows. Faye's warning nags at me, but I push it down. I'm probably just tired from the drive. I met a guy named Tobin at a gas station in Covington yesterday, a lanky dude with a Saints cap who noticed Rusty's Idaho plates. He asked where I was headed, said he grew up in Abita Springs and knew all the best spots. I kept it vague, said I was passing through. He was friendly, but his eyes lingered on Rusty a bit too long, like he was memorizing it. Now, parked here, I wonder if I should have lied. I shake off the thought and grab my journal, jotting down ideas for tomorrow's hike. But my pen freezes when I see a faint glow flicker through the trees, maybe a quarter-mile down the trail. A bike light? It's gone before I can be sure. I climb into bed, pulling the curtains tight. Rusty's cozy, but tonight it feels small, like a tin can in the middle of nowhere. I think about Faye's warning again, and the news I read about a woman who vanished near Slidell last year, her car found abandoned. Was it near here? My phone's got one bar, not enough to check. I tell myself I'm safe, that I've handled sketchy situations before, like that time in Wyoming when a drunk guy banged on my van. I talked him down, no harm done. But this feels different, more disturbing, like I've parked in the wrong story. I keep my knife close, just in case, and try to sleep. The glow I saw hasn't come back, but I can't shake the feeling I'm being watched. I turn off my string lights, letting the dark settle over Rusty. My heart's thumping, and I hate how jumpy I am. I've camped in places that felt alive, deserts, mountains, but this forest feels dead, like it's holding its breath. I try to focus on my breathing, a yoga trick, but every rustle outside makes me flinch. I'm probably overthinking it, I tell myself. Tomorrow, I'll hike, clear my head, and move on. That's the plan. But as I close my eyes, I hear a faint scrape, like metal on gravel, just beyond the lot. My stomach twists, and I grip the knife tighter. I sit up, peering through a crack in the curtain. The lot's empty, the trail swallowed by darkness. The scrape's gone, but now there's a low hum, like a car idling far off. My mind races. Tobin? Someone else? I tell myself it's just a local, maybe a late-night cyclist. But the hum doesn't fade. It lingers, steady, like it's waiting. I'm frozen, torn between checking it out and staying put. The forest feels like a trap, and I'm the bait. I slide into the driver's seat, keys in hand, but I don't start Rusty. Not yet. I need to know what's out there, but the thought of stepping into that darkness is terrifying. Something's wrong, and I'm not sure I'm ready to face it. I'm gripping the keys so tight they dig into my palm, staring into the dark where that hum's coming from. It's faint but steady, like a car idling just out of sight. My heart's racing, and Rusty feels like a fishbowl, exposed on this dirt lot. I want to start the van and peel out, but the Tammany Trace is a straight shot, and if someone's watching, they'll see me coming. I think of a time I camped near Reno, when a truck tailed me for miles. I lost them by pulling into a gas station. But there's no station here, just pines and that scary hum. Faye's warning about being careful gnaws at me. Did she know something? I check my phone. Still 1 bar, not enough to call anyone. The battery's at 20%, because of course I forgot to charge it in Covington. I slide back to the bed, knife in hand, trying to think. The hum stops, and the silence is worse, like the forest holding its breath. I'm tempted to step outside, see if it's just a cyclist or a lost driver, but my gut screams no. I've made dumb moves before, like hiking alone in Colorado and spraining my ankle, but this feels different, disturbing, like I'm one wrong step from disaster. I decide to stay put, wait for dawn. Driving now's too risky. These backroads twist, and I could end up stuck. Rusty's got a full tank, though, so I can bolt if I need to. I just need to stay calm, keep my head. But calm's hard when every shadow looks like a threat. I'm about to lie down when I notice my yoga mat's missing. It was right outside, rolled out for my stretches. My stomach drops. Did I bring it in? I'm sure I didn't. Someone took it, and that's horrifying. I check the locks, heart pounding, and peer through the curtain. The lot's empty, but the trail's too dark to see far. I think of Tobin, his weird stare at the gas station. Did he follow me? I'm starting to think he wasn't just curious. I grab my journal to distract myself, but my hands shake, and the pen slips. That's when I see it. A smudge on the page, like a fingerprint, inky and fresh. I didn't touch ink today. Someone's been in here. I slammed the journal shut, my mind spiraling. Was it when I was at the brew pub? I left Rusty unlocked for maybe 10 minutes while I grabbed coffee. Stupid, Sigrid, so stupid. I've been careless before, like leaving my wallet out in a New Mexico campground. But this is worse. It's personal, scary as hell. I searched the van, checking under the bed, in the cabinets. Nothing's missing, but everything feels wrong, like the air's tainted. I find a crumpled receipt in the sink, from a diner in Slidell I never went to. It's dated yesterday, with a handwritten note. See you soon. My blood runs cold. This isn't random. Someone's playing with me. I'm back in the driver's seat, debating my next move. I could drive to Abita Springs main drag, find a lit parking lot, but that hums back, louder now, closer. It's not a car. It's a motorcycle, maybe two. My heart's in my throat. I think of a news story about a kidnapping ring in St. Tammany Parish, women targeted at rest stops. Is this them? I can't stay here, but leaving means facing whatever's out there. I decide to wait, see if they pass. I dim Rusty's interior, clutching the knife. The motorcycle's slow, their engines idling just beyond the lot. I hear voices, low, male, laughing. It's so disturbing I can barely breathe. The voices cut off, and I hear footsteps, soft but deliberate, crunching on gravel. They're in the lot. I slide low, praying Rusty's dark enough to hide me. My phone's useless, and the whistle's too loud. It'd give me away. I think of hiding under the bed, like when I was a kid playing hide and seek, but there's no game here. This is life or death, and it's terrifying. The footsteps stop, and I hear a faint tap on Rusty's side, like someone's testing it. My chest tightens. They know I'm here. I'm about to start the engine when I see a shadow move past the window, tall and lean. It's not Tobin's build, but that doesn't make it less horrifying. I hold my breath, knife ready, as the shadow lingers. The tapping starts again, rhythmic, like they're taunting me. It's on the back door now, slow and deliberate. My mind flashes to that receipt, the fingerprint, the missing mat. They've been planning this, and I walked right into it. I'm torn. Start Rusty and risk a chase, or stay quiet and hope they leave. But then I hear a new sound, a woman's voice, faint, pleading, from the trail. "Help me," she says, barely audible. My heart stops. Is it a trap? A real victim? I want to help, but every instinct screams danger. The tapping stops, and the shadow moves toward the trail. I'm frozen, caught between fear and guilt, and I know whatever I do next will change everything. That woman's plea, "Help me," cuts through the dark, and I'm paralyzed, knife trembling in my hand. The shadow by Rusty's gone, slinking toward the trail where her voice came from. My gut screams it's a trap, but what if it's real? I think of a missing woman from Mandeville, her face plastered on news sites last year, never found. Could this be another? The motorcycle's hum is back, circling the lot, their lights flickering through the pines. It's horrifying, like they're hurting me. I'm crouched in Rusty, heart pounding, knowing I can't stay. The tapping stopped, but the silence is worse, thick with danger. I need to move, but helping her means facing whatever's out there, and that's scarier than anything I've ever faced. I peek through the curtain, and my blood runs cold. Two men are on the trail, lit by a motorcycle's headlight. One's got a rope coiled over his shoulder, the other's holding a flashlight, sweeping it toward the trees. There's no woman in sight, just them. Their faces shadowed, but their movements deliberate. They're hunting, and I'm the prey, or she is. My mind flashes to Tobin, his creepy stare, but these guys are bigger, rougher. Did he tip them off? The receipt, the fingerprint, it's all connected, a disturbing web I'm caught in. I clutch the knife, remembering a time I scared off a coyote in Idaho with a loud yell. But these aren't animals. They're human, and that's what makes this so terrifying. The flashlight beam swings toward Rusty, and I duck, my breath hitching. They're closing in, their boots crunching louder now. I hear a third voice, sharp, saying, "She's in the van. Get her first." My heart stops. They know I'm here, and they're not after some random woman. They want me. The plea was a lure, a sick trick to flush me out. I think of a kidnapping case in Slidell, where a fake distress call led a driver into an ambush. This is it, happening to me. The motorcycles rev, one circling behind Rusty, cutting off my escape. It's so horrifying I can't think straight. I slide to the driver's seat, keys ready, but starting the van now means a chase I might not win. I'm shaking, weighing my odds. The men are maybe 20 feet away, their shadows stretching across Rusty's windows. I hear a clank, metal on metal, like they're tampering with the back door. My stomach twists. They're trying to get in, and Rusty's locks aren't Fort Knox. I've been in tight spots before, like when a storm trapped me in a Nevada canyon, but I always had a way out. Not now. The flashlight beam hits the windshield, blinding me for a second. I squint and see one of them, his face half lit, grinning like this is fun. It's the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, like I'm a game to them. I need to act, or I'm done. I jam the key in, but before I can turn it, the back door rattles hard, like they're prying it open. I scream, a raw sound that hurts my throat. The men laugh, actually laugh, and it's so cruel it fuels my panic. I grab the whistle from my bag, blowing it as loud as I can. The shrill sound cuts through the night, and the rattling stops, but only for a second. She's feisty, one says, his voice close, taunting. I'm trapped, the motorcycle's blocking the lot's exit. My phone's dead now, no chance to call for help. The terror's choking me, but I force myself to think. I've got the knife, the pepper spray I forgot about, and Rusty. It's all I've got against them. I fumble for the pepper spray, my hands slick with sweat. The men are at the side door now, banging with something heavy. A crowbar, maybe. Rusty shakes with each hit, and I'm losing it, picturing them dragging me into the woods. I think of Faye, her warning. Was she part of this? The thought's so scary it's like a punch. I start the engine, and Rusty roars, headlights flooding the lot. The men freeze, caught in the glare, but they don't run. The one with the rope steps closer, his grin wider, like he's daring me. It's horrifying, unnatural. I slam the gas, aiming for the trail's edge, but a motorcycle cuts me off, its rider waving a chain. I swerve, clipping a tree, and Rusty stalls. They're on me now. The men surround the van, their flashlight beams dancing inside, pinning me like a bug. I'm screaming, spraying the pepper spray at the cracked window, but it's useless. They're outside, and I'm locked in. The rider dismounts, joining them, and I see his face, Tobin. My heart sinks. He wasn't just curious, he's one of them, maybe the leader. Told you I'd see you soon, he says, tapping the receipt against the glass. The betrayal's so disturbing it breaks something in me. They're organized, relentless, and on their target. Rusty's my only shield, but it's failing. The crowbar smashes the side window, glass raining down, and a hand reaches in. I stab with the knife, hitting flesh, but it's not enough. They're coming, and I'm out of time. Glass crunches under my feet as I stab at the hand reaching through Rusty's shattered window. The man yelps, pulling back, but Tobin's still there, grinning like a demon. The motorcycles rev, their lights blinding me. I restart Rusty, the engine sputtering but catching. I slam the gas, tires spinning on gravel, and barrel toward the Tammany Trace. The men shout, one swinging the crowbar at my taillight. It cracks, but I don't stop. My heart's pounding, the terror so thick I can't breathe. They're chasing me, a motorcycle roaring alongside. Its rider, Tobin, swinging that chain. It's horrifying, like a nightmare I can't wake from. I think of a Slidell kidnapping, a woman dragged from her car. That's not going to be me. The trail's too narrow for Rusty, branches clawing the sides, but I've got no choice. The lot's blocked, and the men are on foot now, their flashlight beams bouncing behind me. I swerve to avoid a ditch, nearly tipping. My knife's on the dash, pepper spray spent. I've outrun trouble before, like a sketchy guy tailing me in Arizona, but this is different, a coordinated hunt. The motorcycle's still with me, Tobin yelling something I can't hear. I spot a side path, barely a deer track, and yank the wheel, plunging into the pines. Rusty groans, scraping trees, but the bike can't follow as easily. I've bought time, but the forest's a maze, and I'm running blind. I kill the headlights, praying the moonlight's enough. The motorcycle's engine fades, but I hear shouts. They're not giving up. My hands shake, slick with sweat, as I navigate the twisting path. Rusty's rattling, something's wrong with the engine. I think of a time I broke down in Utah, stuck for hours, but I had cell service then. Now, my phone's dead, and Abita Springs feels a million miles away. The path widens, leading to a clearing, but my stomach drops. There's a chain-link fence, rusted but tall, blocking the way. I'm trapped, and the shouts are closer. It's so scary I want to scream, but I need to think. I grab the knife, ready to run on foot. I'm about to bolt when I see a gap in the fence, just wide enough for me. I ditch Rusty, grabbing my backpack and knife, and squeeze through, tearing my jacket. The pines are thick, swallowing sound, but I hear the men, 3, maybe 4, crashing through the brush. Their flashlights sweep, one grazing my heel. I dive behind a log, heart hammering. I've hidden before, like when I camped in Oregon and heard wolves, but wolves don't hunt like this. These guys are relentless, their voices cold, saying, she's close. It's disturbing, like they know I can't escape. I crawl toward a creek, hoping the water will mask my trail, but every step feels like a mistake. The creek's shallow, icy water soaking my jeans. I move downstream, staying low, the knife clenched tight. The men's voices split up, they're fanning out, systematic, like they've done this before. I think of a St. Tammany case, a trafficking ring busted last year, women lured to remote spots. Is this them? The thought's horrifying, fueling my panic. I spot a dirt road ahead, maybe leading to town, but a flashlight beam cuts across it. I freeze, crouched in the reeds. Someone's there, boots squelching, muttering, got her scent. It's so creepy I nearly sob. I'm out of tricks, out of time. I need to keep moving or they'll find me. I slip across the road, dodging the beam, and plunge into thicker woods. My legs burn, lungs screaming, but I can't stop. The men's shouts are fainter, but a motorcycle revs nearby, too close. I think of Rusty, my home, abandoned back there. It hurts, but survival's all that matters. I've escaped danger before, like a flash flood in Nevada, but this is personal, a hunt meant for me. I spot a rusted shed, half hidden by vines, and crawl inside, praying it's safe. The air's sour, but it's cover. I huddle in the dark, knife ready, listening. The motorcycle slows, its lights sweeping past. They're circling, and I'm running out of places to hide. I'm shaking, the shed's walls creaking around me. The men's voices are back, closer, arguing about where I went. One says, check the shed, and my blood runs cold. I'm trapped again, the terror choking me. I feel for an exit, finding a loose board in the back. I pry it open, wincing at the noise, and slip out just as a flashlight beam hits the shed's door. I'm in the open now, no cover, sprinting toward a faint glow, maybe a beat of springs. But the motorcycle's on me, its engine roaring. Tobin's voice cuts through. "You can't run forever, Sigrid." He knows my name. It's so disturbing it breaks me. I'm running, but the glow's not salvation. It's another trap, and I'm heading right for it. I'm sprinting toward the glow, legs buckling. The motorcycles roar right behind me. The pines thin out, and I see it. A gas station, neon sign flickering. Salvation, I think, but Tobin's voice, "You can't run forever," echoes horrifyingly close. I burst into the lot, waving for help, but the station's empty, windows dark. My heart sinks. It's abandoned, the glow a cruel lure. I think of a woman in Covington, kidnapped from a fake rest stop. This is it, their setup. I spin, knife raised, as Tobin dismounts, his chain dangling. Two more men emerge, one with a taser, their eyes cold. It's so scary I can't breathe. I back toward the station, praying for a miracle, but I've got nothing left. I kick at the station's door, hoping to barricade myself, but it's locked. Tobin laughs, slow and cruel. "You're a fighter, Sigrid," he says, tossing the receipt from my van. It's got my name, scribbled like a trophy. The betrayal's disturbing. I told him nothing, but he knew everything. Was Faye in on it? Her warning feels like a lie now. I swing the knife, but the taser guy lunges, and I dodge, tripping over a hose. Pain shoots through my ankle. I'm down, crawling, thinking of a time I fell hiking in Idaho, how I laughed it off. No laughing now. They're closing in, and my mistake was running here, thinking I'd find help. This was their plan all along. I scramble behind a pump, knife shaking in my hand. The men circle, unhurried, like they've already won. I hear a new sound, sirens, faint but growing louder. Hope sparks. Did someone hear my whistle? But Tobin smirks, unbothered. Too late for that, he says, and my stomach drops. The sirens aren't for me. They're a trick, maybe a scanner to confuse me. I think of a trafficking bust in Slidell, how the cops were tipped off too late. I'm alone, and it's horrifying. I lunge at Tobin, slicing his arm, but the taser hits me, electric pain dropping me. I'm twitching, vision blurring, as they grab my wrists, zip ties biting my skin. They drag me toward a van, not Rusty, but a blacked-out monster with no plates. I'm screaming, kicking, but they're too strong. The taser guy mutters, "She'll fetch a good price." And it's so cruel I want to vomit. I think of my yoga students, my Boise apartment, all I'll never see again. My knife's gone, dropped in the dirt. My mistake was fighting alone, thinking I could outrun them. The van's door slides open, and I see her. Faye, the waitress, inside, counting cash. Her eyes meet mine, empty, like I'm already gone. It's the most disturbing thing, worse than Tobin's grin. She was the bait, the mastermind, and I trusted her. I'm thrown into the van, the door slamming shut. It's dark, smelling of oil and fear. I'm zip-tied, helpless, as the engine starts. I hear Tobin outside, laughing with the others. My mind races, grasping for a way out, but there's none. I think of Rusty, my sanctuary, left in the woods. I think of the Mandeville woman, her family still searching. That's my fate now. My biggest mistake was stopping in Abita Springs, ignoring the signs. Faye's warning, Tobin's stare, the receipt. The van lurches forward, and I'm sobbing, the terror overwhelming. I'm not escaping this. The pines fade, and so do I, another name on a missing poster. But then, a jolt. The van swerves, tires screeching. I'm thrown against the wall, pain exploding in my shoulder. Outside, there's shouting, not Tobin's crew. New voices, sharp, commanding. Real sirens now, not a trick. Cops. A crash shakes the van, metal grinding. The door rips open, and I see flashlights, not the men's, but police, guns drawn. "Get down," they yell. Faye's screaming, Tobin's cursing, but they're pinned. I'm shaking, barely conscious, as an officer cuts my ties. I'm saved, but it doesn't feel like it. The horror's carved into me, a scar I'll never lose. I'm alive, but part of me died in that van. It's over, but not really. The cops say they've been tracking Faye's ring for months, using fake stops like this to snatch women. I was lucky. My whistle tipped off a hiker who called 911. But as I'm wrapped in a blanket, watching Tobin and Faye cuffed, I feel hollow. Rusty's totaled, my home gone. I think of the other women, the ones who didn't make it, their names in case files. My mistake was trusting the quiet of Abita Springs, thinking I was safe. The tragedy isn't just mine, it's theirs, and it's Louisiana's dark heart, beating in every shadow. I'm free, but I'll never feel safe again.